Okay, I think we'll make a start. We're just slightly run over the time. So we have a panel session now, which I will be running. So we have, and I'll let the guys introduce themselves in a second. We will be talking about rich channel adoption, and has RCS already lost the race? So with me, I have DCB from Vonage, I have Tõnis from Messente, and Lisa from Sinch. So welcome. Should we just start? Do you want to introduce yourselves and just say what you do at your various companies?
No worries. Hello.
With Mike?
Let's see. There we go. So yes, good afternoon-ish, everybody. I'm David Creasy-Benjamin, affectionately known as DCB, and I am one of the world's greatest champions of RCS.
Sounds like you've won something.
So I work at, I've recently joined Vonage. I was at Cisco before that, but I've been focused on rich messaging in all its forms, probably for the last 8 years, and answering some of these questions about adoption and about reach and about verification and why they are so important for us all.
Great. Thank you. Tõnis?
Yeah, I'm Tõnis from Messente. So I already shared in the last panel that we are doing business messaging with core focus towards medium market enterprises. So we are not chasing after the same customers usually as our lovely panelist here from Sinch. But I manage everything that is related to connectivity and aggregator sales, managing procurement team for our enterprise, and affectionately known as numbers guy in Messente.
Right.
It's brilliant. So my name is Lundell. I'm responsible for our operator sales and partnerships team at Sinch for Latin America and for Europe. But I've been in the industry for quite some time. I've been worked both on the product, the marketing, the operator side. So I've got a long background in what we're doing, and I'm also a proponent of the RCS business.
Fantastic.
So you can already see which way this panel is going to come down on this question.
I think so. Well, let's see where we go with it. So what we will do is we'll talk a bit about, the different channels here, which will be, I think, a nice change from some of the panels I've run recently, where it's all been purely focused on RCS. So what we'll do here is just kind of flip the debate a little bit and look at some of the other channels as well. But let's start with David. Maybe why do you think RCS adoption has lagged for enterprises? What have you seen?
Well, I think Gav used the metaphor, it's a tale of two cities earlier. It's not, it's a tale of 1,000 operators. And consensus is a hard-fought thing. Carriers protect that device in our pocket that we look at hundreds of times a day. So if you're going to make a core change to a core service, the level of consensus that you need to build to get people to adopt new things is huge. And there are different considerations around what's the business case going to be? What's it going to eat into my existing consumer base? Am I going to be able to offer a better service? And all around the world, carriers look at that question slightly differently. RCS has been around as a standard, as an idea for 12, 14 years. And some carriers adopted it really early, built their own platforms, but they were quite closed. And as the market has developed and OTT players have really come to the fore, I think carriers have realized they have to be able to offer their consumers better. And that's where that consensus is built. And you can start to see that now. So look at some of those markets we've looked at this morning where there is consensus between the carriers. The growth is huge. I mean, Brazil is the perfect example. If you're going to say, is WhatsApp going to dominate and is it too late for RCS? Show them that slide. No, it isn't. They fulfill different things. And you think about the way that operators, OTTs like Viber and like WhatsApp, they're wonderful applications. Consumers adore them. But the consensus they had to build was, we're going to take this product to market because we want to be able to offer messaging to the public. And they launched it. And it worked. And they've got their territories and they've got adoption grown from consumer confidence. RCS has come from the other end. I'm in a regulated industry. I want to offer a better service. We have to find consensus amongst the carriers. So now that is there, actually, there's going to be growth sort of parity. And the figures are starting to bear that out. And just because one exists doesn't mean they can't all exist. Because consumers have different needs.
So it's channel of choice for that particular application or
And even
for that use
even for the
case.
type of conversation you want to have. You know, there's a reason that banks aren't adopting WhatsApp wholesale. You know, you'd think with security, end-to-end encryption, they'd be jumping all over it, but they aren't, because it's owned by a single company, a single entity. Where RCS exists, they are starting to jump on it because they have the reliability and the scale and the SLAs offered by carriers to be able to adopt that safely. But it doesn't mean a consumer doesn't want to talk on the other channel. Let them choose. The channel is the thing that hosts the conversation. The important thing is to have the conversation in the first place.
Great, thanks, David. Lisa, if I can come to you next. So from what we've seen is that in certain regions, it's not the case everywhere, but WhatsApp seems to be taking off or has taken off at a slightly higher pace than RCS. Why do you think that is? Is it more understandable, do you think? Or is it something else?
Well, I think first we need to think of the reason why there was a space in the market for WhatsApp to exist, why they filled an important niche that was missing, was that we as an industry, not we as MEF or Sinch or aggregators, there was a gap in the market for the ability to consumers to speak together in group chats, to share rich communication, and WhatsApp filled that gap really nicely. And so they were, or have been able to gain great traction within markets. Having said that, though, they do have challenges that aren't, maybe a bit more unique compared to the RCS situation, in that it still requires a download of an app.
Yeah.
And we who sit in this room are probably, all of us probably have WhatsApp and know what apps are available, the competitive apps, etc. But if we look to actually what Pedro addressed earlier, is that there is a huge difference demographically about who is on WhatsApp. And so that 2 billion active users, that's a huge accomplishment on having an app, but it's not without its differences in, if you're trying to, as a business, to reach as many of your customers as possible, you have to find the right time and place and channel to reach those customers. And I think that we in this industry have a responsibility and a gap to fill there, is to help businesses reach their customers in a good way, where the consumer expects to be reached.
I think it's
and
fair
the timing.
Sorry, I agree. And I think it's fair to say that, we talk a bit about WhatsApp, but even WhatsApp has pockets, right? There's certain gaps globally in the market where WhatsApp just isn't used that much. And I was asking Mariola and colleagues from the carrier space just to understand the Nordics market a little bit more. And I think WhatsApp is used heavily here, but there's many other apps that are used as well. I don't know if
Very simple example in Estonia, key messaging app that I use, all of my friends use, is Facebook Messenger. WhatsApp is used, but by far not to the same extent. But as DCB said as well, I have to just point out, people don't know what RCS is. If I talk with my friends, because I was discussing the similar topic, what we're going to talk here today, last week, I'm looked back by blank eyes. WhatsApp makes sense to people even if they don't use WhatsApp.
Yeah.
RCS is it Android? Is it iMessage for Android? What's the logic? How it's, there's so much unknown for the general public, and that translates to the enterprise as well.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that growth question. WhatsApp has got billions of users. Viber in certain countries is 100% the messaging market. Facebook Messenger in Estonia. But that's all born out of consumer use and growth for personal messaging. When they're talking to a business, that's still a flip. That's still a difference. So while WhatsApp is growing and growing incredibly well in certain territories, there is a certain amount of pushback from people at the other end going, that's where I talk to my mum. I don't want to talk to my bank or my insurer next to my mum. I want SMS to arrive with my pins and everything. And increasingly, the default inbox from your carrier is where people kind of expect business notifications and business communications. And where RCS has been available, and some of the pilots that Sinch has launched, that Vonage has launched, that some of the wonderful use cases that are out there, people accept it in that inbox in a way that they perhaps don't in other places, because they know that what goes in there is driven from their carrier. They've got that verification, and they're like, oh, that's a business message. I'll interact with that. I trust it. Thank you very much. And I think there's still a lot to be said for, this is where I've got my personal, and this is where I have my business.
Yeah. Okay, let's move the conversation slightly to pricing and public pricing. And Tõnis, if I can come to you for this, is it something MNOs and CPaaS providers should advocate for RCS, in your opinion?
In my opinion, they should advocate it for SMS even. Because it's, it's a hot topic in the past, let's say, 6 or 7 months. But SMS has been so commoditized, and the whole industry is moving more towards value proposition, right? But why are we now trying to, if let's say RCS is competing a little bit with WhatsApp, a little bit with Viber, but a little bit with SMS as well. Why are we still keeping it under wraps while everything else on the rich side is absolutely public? The billing is public. You can prove the value that you're generating and thus make that billing on top of that. But why are we now trying to build up RCS the same way that, hiding the margin, doing this, doing that? It should be public anyway.
Yeah.
Because that also starts to eliminate fraudulent, gray routes, and yes, this is on the SMS side. But RCS, I haven't heard from not single MNO that RCS will be cheaper than SMS. It's always going to be more expensive.
But I think the important point for us as an industry is we need to pivot away from the lowest common denominator. If you're sending an SMS at the moment for, pick an expensive industry, so pick healthcare. If you're sending out a reminder that you've got an appointment with your doctor at the hospital, and that SMS means that you don't miss it, that's 140 euros saved for the hospital for the sake of a couple of cents. So it's always strange to me that we'll argue and haggle over 1,000th of a cent, but we're saving 140 quid a time. So when you're talking about RCS and you're talking about the improvements in return on investment and WhatsApp and Viber, being able to host an app-like experience that consumers enjoy, that they trust, and they will interact with, the value you should be talking about there is completely different than, oh yeah, it'll cost you 3 cents to send it. And I know that's more expensive than SMS, I'm very sorry. The type of services that CPaaS providers pour into the back of those agents and the back of those bots, we should be talking about selling the use case. We're talking about reducing your do not attends. We're talking about improving the number of deliveries that you get. We're improving the number of people that log into your system and can do what they want. And I'm going to do that by communicating in the right way where your consumers want to be. And that should be the conversation that we're having as CPaaS providers, as carriers, as aggregators, as everybody.
Yeah. So on this subject of pricing, Lisa, if maybe I can come to you. Right now, at least in the EU, WhatsApp pricing is higher than SMS. But if that would change and it becomes either in line or cheaper than SMS, where would this leave RCS, do you think?
No, I mean, as I was saying earlier, I really think that there is a responsibility within the industry to help businesses to find the right time, channel to reach the customer. And I think that the WhatsApp clearly does have a place within business messaging, but oftentimes it's more associated, as you were saying, David, with sender-initiated communications. I need support, I need to contact somebody. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it will permanently be so, but I think that RCS, and particularly after this week's announcements, opens up completely different levels of ubiquity, because all of a sudden now we have, instead of 1 million, we're going to have 1 billion, 5.6 billion available handsets quite soon in the foreseeable future. And that type of access and availability is worth something. It is highly valuable.
Yeah.
So I don't think that I think that from an economic standpoint, the right price will find the right product, and it will be equally liberalized. And
I think it's worth also throwing in, WhatsApp could change its price to match an SMS tomorrow. And more people will adopt it, but it won't be explosive. And I think the reason is the majority of conversations that people have via SMS today are business initiated. And to business initiate a conversation on WhatsApp is not easy. So if I want to send an SMS campaign, I've got to register with my aggregator, I've got to get my sender ID registered if I'm in a country that requires that. And once I'm done, I can start sending. And if I find that the text that I'm sending doesn't quite work, option B works better, I can flip that over and I can start sending. It's incredibly easy to use, incredibly smooth, and it's ubiquitous. It's why it's successful. In a WhatsApp world, I have to write my template and I have to have it approved. Now that's automated, typically takes 30 seconds or whatever it is on the API these days. But if I'm a marketing company and I'm A/B testing, I might want to change that template 10, 15, 20 times in the first day of a campaign to really hone in and find and by the time I'm submitting that template, because you can't edit it, you have to submit a new one, and then submit a new one, and then submit a new one. And if you're submitting lots, then you're going to hit manual, and that will take 24 hours to get approval. The other thing from a legal perspective is if you're using WhatsApp properly, you must have an opt-in specifically for that channel. So all the work that we've done as aggregators, as enterprises over the last 8 years, opting people in for SMS, unfortunately, you have to throw all of that away, and you have to opt people in to WhatsApp. And so people have done that fabulously well, and they've started to build that up again. The advantage for RCS, though, is carrier-driven, as is SMS. So if you've got an opted-in SMS base, you've got a verified RCS agent, you can start flipping your traffic over. And consumers are quite happy to accept it in that inbox, and you've got the right to market to them there. So there are still some things in WhatsApp that make it a P2A channel first.
But there is something that we should think about as an industry as well, is that WhatsApp does have, it's owned by Meta, and it has a single process, albeit there's templates and there's additional, I guess, overhead for getting a campaign up and running, but it's a single model. So that's something that we need to think about as an industry to make it as easy as possible for businesses to understand, to have, because we're operating from it's a carrier build model, but that means that there's going to be lots of thousands potentially in the background that are sitting there with the price. So that's something that we need to think about and work on together.
Yeah. But that's the ease of access, which hasn't been there for RCS until just recently. Because let's say Germany is a very good example. You have one registration for the market. I understand in Sweden they want to operate the same way. Yeah. If that will be the common, let's say, denominator globally, then I'm able to accept it. But if it's going to be spread out in a way that in this market I have to deal with these operators separately, register everything there, the go-to-market will not be possible in a short span of time, which is needed to get adoption on the channel. I'm not saying that WhatsApp is easy breezy beautiful, because depending on the, let's say, content, the use case, even SMS can be very, very difficult to actually get started for an enterprise.
But that's where we, as an ecosystem, as a CPaaS provider, as an enterprise enabling company, play our role. Because those of us in the audience that are carriers, you control access to your network. And what we do as a CPaaS provider, as a technology provider, is we make it easy for enterprises to access all of you and meet all of those requirements. I think Germany's a fabulous example where the carriers have got together and turned around and said, yeah, we want to make it easy. So all of our partners, this is the point in which you come, you submit one form, we'll verify with the enterprises directly, make sure that you've got the right to send it, and done. And we've certainly got use cases now where you can go from creating the bot into test, and then prove your test, submit your verification, and be live in a few hours. Now that's the exception rather than the rule at the moment, but that's continually speeding up and speeding up. And it comes back to that point of consensus. If the more consensus we can build as an ecosystem in the right places, and it's easier for businesses to adopt, then I genuinely think that RCS can overtake the likes of WhatsApp for business messaging.
So simplicity, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree because I don't want to sound like I'm against RCS.
No.
I'm totally for it because the idea of having the MNOs in the value chain, I think it's super important. But, and the but there has been the past, what you said, 13, 14 years, that's the but.
Yep.
In that, and the sense of urgency, especially given the news that came out on Monday, I think that's something, or that's the message that I want to convey forward, because now is the last chance to do it quickly, to get on board.
So just on that note then, so if we look at WhatsApp and Meta and what they're doing, and Viber, they're offering incentives for companies like yours to go sell their products. That doesn't exist today, is my understanding, with RCS. So do you think, and I'll come to you first, Tõnis, if that's okay, do you think the carriers should do something similar, and would that help?
Look, the way I see it, because I'm here with two of the biggest heavy hitters in the industry, right? If we're talking about Sinch, we're talking Vonage, we have other people in the room here ourselves as well, and you are leading the charge for RCS adoption. But companies like Messente, we are going after a little bit of a different type of a spectrum of businesses. And if I go to my development team or with our management team, if we discuss which is going to be the first, let's say, development, if we wouldn't have it yet, then I can't say that RCS will be number one choice. Because the immediate return with the incentives comes from, yes, very, let's say, low penetration globally from Viber, bigger from WhatsApp, and then we have RCS, which is the future channel, I truly believe. But in the short term, these are the things that are driving the growth on the other rich channels. Yeah. That's purely my opinion.
David?
It's difficult to frame it, but in the long term, there is never going to be a channel like SMS again. I think SMS is the first, last, and only ubiquitous channel. Yeah. RCS ultimately might be on every single device. It's part of the 5G standard, part of the GSMA spec, so actually it might be ubiquitous. But it won't be ubiquitously used the way that SMS is, because there's some great choice out there. WhatsApp fulfills some fabulous use cases, but it also excludes huge swathes of verticals that they don't want doing it, because Meta don't want to work with those type of companies. And it's the same whichever geography you find yourself in, where there's a particularly dominant local messaging app, there are exclusions. So what I think will happen, certainly short term, RCS is going to see a set of growth. Medium to long term, it's going to come the base layer. And then each individual enterprise will know their consumers and know where the consumers are, what the geographies are at play, what the demographics are at play, and what Pedro and Tim said this morning. Find the best place to talk to that consumer. You need to be where they are, because that's how you get the best out of them. And if they want to flip when they're talking about they owe you money versus they're buying and they want a discount, they might be completely different conversations in different places, because the psychology of the person at the other end is completely different. And enterprises can embrace that. But carriers, I think, will always be able to have the fallback and the base layer that people trust. And it's that level of trust that nobody else can quite offer.
Sorry, Lisa, what's your views from Sinch?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that we are in a unique time period in the sense that there has been difficult macroeconomic circumstances for businesses, and we're launching this new service, and I think that we need to recognize that there has to be a ramp up for businesses to be able to come in and to be able to use these channels effectively, and it requires partially coaching, partially maybe incentives if there's development needed on the side, but that fundamentally, what's different is that we were going from a place of communicating from one to many to we are now going to be communicating one-to-one with the customer. And that's a completely different ballgame from what most businesses are currently used to doing. So that requires the support of, well, partially, the players that are here in this room, that we've got the CPaaS platforms and we've got the correct support for them to be able to do that, but it also requires for the businesses to change things how they're doing systematically wise on their side. It requires a very thorough investigation of what their use cases are for customer communications, and probably needs to be evolved over some time period and some serious testing and some serious commitment. Once you get over to the other side, I think it's going to be a very fantastic place where we've already seen where businesses that have been successful with RCS campaigns have been able to increase revenues, increase click-through, increase engagement, increase the general customer experience of working with their company. So that's...
And that is coming already from basic RCS.
Yes.
Compared to us. It was like Tim said, what maybe like my closing comment, I'm not sure how much time we have, but taking what DCB said before, I really hope that in 3 years' time when we come back to Stockholm, we're talking that RCS is #1 channel, not the fallback. And maybe in Sweden it will never be just because of the other channel penetrations, but...
So apologies to cut in there because we are running out of time. I've been given the 2 fingers, which I think means 2 minutes, so it could be something else from Martika. But let me just quickly ask you a question, because we've got people in the room here from these places. Quick fire answer, not an easy one, but could you give me one thing that you would like from MNOs, Google or Apple? Apple aren't here today, but maybe next year, to help drive RCS to become the #1 channel of choice for rich business messaging. And I'll start with David.
Go over the line and use it. Wherever a carrier has launched their own messaging on it, the enterprises follow. You all have to send messages to your consumers that regulators demand that you send. When someone turns their phone on, the first thing you do is you send them a wall of text, which nobody reads. I'll tell you that now. It doesn't matter how many terms and conditions, how many links you put in it, nobody reads it. Convert that to RCS. Use the carousels, promote your self-service, promote your apps, promote your bots, start putting it in people's inbox. The more consumers expect trusted, verified messaging from their carrier, the more demand that you will grow. And we can point to all the networks that have done it, and they've all seen that growth. Go over the line with it. Tell your consumers you're giving it to them for free.
Okay, so we drop it in their laps. Tõnis?
Let's talk more action. Very similar to what you said. What I would like to see is hammering down and focusing on those 18 markets that support RBM right now. Because we have been talking in past 3-4 years, how long I have been coming to these MEF events, everybody's talking about potential reach. But we need to act now. It's a sense of urgency that we need to create, then that will start doubling everywhere else. It's a rollover effect.
But what is the action? What would you ask them to do for you?
I would love Estonia to have RCS support.
Okay.
But we have, in the Baltics, we have operators who are asking us what RCS is. So that's why we are talking. People don't know yet.
Let's get the message out there. Lisa?
I would say that we need to have very clean and clear agent approvals. Make it as smooth as possible for businesses to come in and test in this space. So that's the #1.
Simplification. Yeah, that's what we all need. Okay, I'd like to offer...
I'm going to add one more.
Right, there was only one.
Yeah, no, I'll add one more. I can get like 5 or 6 in, right?
2 minutes.
One more. Go to your aggregation partners and tell them RBM first. All the SMS they're submitting to you today, we've reached the consensus that we know that SMS is eventually going to go. It is. We've accepted it. So go to your aggregators and say, all our incentives, everything to get you to come and do traffic with us, I want you to be sending RBM first, and then you can have SMS as well. Most of the big players and the small players, everybody. that sending you SMS today can do that. So ask them to do it.
Great. Well, I think we can continue conversation in the break. Apologies, there won't be time for questions, but thank you, David. Thank you, Tõnis. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. Okay.